Welcome to the hymn of ash and echo. This is The Collapse, Dead Run, a full zombie survival audiobook. Part 1. Before we begin, a quick note. By decree of Adam, these stories are written by me, but for now they're narrated with AI while I work on my voice acting craft. Thank you for your patience. I'll earn the mic soon enough. Now, back to the story. Chapter 1. Cubicles and Corpses. People say the world won't end with a bang but a whimper. In truth, it ended with moans and grunts within less than 24 hours. At least his did. Theirs did. Larry sat in his cubicle, Microsoft Excel open on his desktop as he stared at his phone. A typical New Yorker Thursday, if there ever was one. Lunch break came and went. He ate alone among his colleagues, most of them staring at the two new hires. Anna and Tina, two 20-something-year-olds just starting out. To the older men around him, especially to Stephen and Noah, they looked like an easy snack. Some fun on the side, away from the wife and kids. The more seasoned women, for their age was not to be mentioned, smiled at them as they pushed them down the metaphorical stairs. To Larry, however, they looked scared and lost. And he sure as hell didn't care enough to engage them or to try and sabotage them. Physically, he was there from 9 to 5, mentally from 10 to 2, and spiritually, he walked his dog. They ran and played in his mind, as his fingers tip-tapped away on the old and dirty keyboard. 2 p.m. passed, and nothing changed. The clock chimed 3 p.m. as he wasted away, 4 coffees deep and a second lunch on his table, smelling heavenly. And that would be the last sweet thing to graze his nose. Barry's head popped over his cubicle. "Larry, my man," he smiled. Larry tried for a smile. It looked like a scowl. Barry thought them to be boys, based on their names and nothing more. "Hey, Barry, did you see the news?" "Just getting to it." He lifted his phone. "Do you think it's true?" Barry scuttled over, standing directly in the AC's way. The smell of cigarettes and tuna wafted over him. "Haven't gotten to that part yet," Larry said, turning his head away. "What do you mean?" "I'm guessing you're asking about the riots in the districts," Larry said, reading the sports section. The Knicks made a splash in the off-season. Whether it will end in a playoff push is yet to be decided. And I'm still at the feel-good section. "I think it's fake." "Why?" Larry asked. Then the screams started. Both men looked at each other, then heads around them rose from their seats. "What the hell?" Larry stood. "People are losing their minds," Marge said, standing at the window. "They are running and screaming." Larry rushed to the windows. Outside was chaos. People ran and jumped and screamed. Or some did. Others ran around, covered in blood, attacking whoever was nearest. "The fuck?" Barry asked. "I got no idea," Larry said as they watched the chaos unfold. A man wearing a suit attacked a mother and her child, and a homeless man ran to their aid. Blood sprayed as the suited man sank his teeth into the homeless man's face. They went down in a flurry of limbs and blood. 30 seconds later, the suited man jumped up, running the mother and her crying daughter down. Larry watched as the woman did her best to protect her daughter, but she failed. Well, fell, and the girl, maybe 8, ran. Or she tried to. The homeless man grabbed her leg, and she tripped, her head slamming against the pavement. The homeless man got on top and sank his teeth into the girl's neck. The suited man joined him. Moments later, so did the mother, half her chest missing. "Zombies," Barry whispered. I guess Alex Jones was right. Larry stared at the most annoying man in the office and realized that Barry was the only person he knew anything about. He disliked the man, true, but he actually knew him enough to dislike him. "Shit," Larry breathed. "I'll say," Barry muttered, his eyes glued to the street, 1 story below. "What the fuck?" the man asked, Larry turned to the window. A white Ford flew over the intersection, then disappeared. "Down!" he shouted, jumping for cover. The whole building shook as the Ford tore through the glass walls of the ground level. People around him screamed as Larry lay on his stomach, hands covering his head. The street chaos spread through the office. Panic entered even his disinterested brain. "Oh, get up!" Barry grabbed his shoulder. "We need to move!" "Where to?" Larry asked. But Barry pulled him up instead of answering. "Barry!" "To get weapons and to get the fuck out of here." Larry tried to protest, but he had no other plan or idea what to do, and Barry pulled him along into the office kitchen. He grabbed a knife, offering him another. Larry took it, his brain finally fighting through the panic and shock. "We should take the kitchen towels as well." "What for?" "Protection?" Larry said, wrapping the towel around his hand. "My man," Barry patted his back. "Do we have duct tape?" "I don't know, but we don't need it," Larry said, splitting one end of the towel and tying it to his hand. He did the same thing for his other arm. Barry stared at him, then tried mimicking. He failed. "Let me," Larry said, tying the towels tight. Would that be enough? He thought. "Where did you learn how to do that?" "My grandma was a nurse," he said. "Do you want me to do your legs as well?" Someone rushed into the kitchen, and both men brandished knives at Anna. She froze but was pushed inside. Tina, Marge, Greg, and Stephen busted into the kitchen. They stared at them for a moment. "What are you doing with those knives?" Marge asked. "Arming ourselves," Barry said. "Smart," Greg said, taking one for himself. "Yeah, it is," Barry responded, taking the big wooden cutting board. "Let's move." Larry nodded, and the two men exited the kitchen. "We will have to be quiet," Larry said, rushing to one of the two exits, the one closer to the stairs. "Engage only if we must," Barry said, winking as if he were joking. Larry nodded, reaching the slowly closing door. He put his leg out, stopping it. Both men looked at each other and then at the office manager's table. The short woman was nowhere to be found. Hopefully, she didn't run brainlessly into the chaos. Barry pulled his keycard out of his pocket and hung it around his neck. Smart man, Larry thought, doing the same. Stephen, Greg, Marge, and Tina rushed past them, carrying knives. Anna lagged behind, holding a metal tray in her hands as she slowly approached. The thin and tall woman looked nervously at them, expecting something. "What?" Larry asked himself. "You sticking with us?" he asked. "Please, yes," she said, her voice shaking. "Stay close and follow our lead," Barry said, stretching his neck and arms. The two men looked at each other one last time and pushed the door fully open. The small hallway containing the elevator and the emergency escape stairs was empty, but not silent. Emergency doors opening and closing echoed in the building, as did grunts and steps, and an occasional scream. His mind filled in the blanks. The grunts of zombies as they pushed the doors open or closed. The running steps of men and women trying to get away, and the screams of those who failed. "Move," Larry thought, slowly pushing the heavy emergency exit door open. There was nothing there. Well, nothing worrisome. He saw a small trail of blood leading down the stairs, disappearing behind Greg, Stephen, and the two women kneeling by the corner, looking down. "Quiet now," Barry whispered, and they moved. Or Larry and Anna moved. Barry stayed back, jamming something into the emergency doors so it didn't fully close. He gave them a thumbs up, and Larry continued, taking the lead. Barry covered the back, and Anna walked in the middle, her knuckles white on the metal tray as her whole body shook. Larry's entire focus was on moving forward, step by step, trying to stay quiet and keep his teeth from chattering. Eyes focused on the scene before him, trusting Barry to have his back. They closed in on the first office group as they knelt, quiet as church mice. "We are," Larry whispered so quietly that Tina barely heard him. The woman nodded, touching Marge's back, and she turned, took the scene in, then informed Greg by pinching the man's leg. The man turned, nodded, then turned back, pointing at something. Larry moved left, trying to get a better vantage point, and then he saw it. The white Ford made a big hole in the glass wall, and at least 7 zombies gathered around the car and the hole, leaving the main entrance empty. They had a straight shot to it, a 15-foot dash, if that. Barry touched his shoulder, and Larry turned to him. The man held 2 fingers before his eyes, then pointed outwards, shrugging. Larry stared at him, not comprehending. "What do you see?" he mouthed. Larry held up 7 fingers and bit the air. Barry smiled. Was the man enjoying this? Larry asked himself. Better that than being scared shitless, he told himself, then mouth at Barry. Exit no zombies, followed by a headshake and air biting just to be sure. Someone behind him moved, and Larry turned to see Greg holding Marge back. She shook her head, pointing at the exit. He shook his head, eyes wide, mouthing no. The woman lifted her knife to his face, teeth bared. Greg slowly released her, and she circled him, knife held high. "I can," she mouthed, throwing one last glance at them before bolting for the door. It might have only been a 15-foot dash, but Marge barely made it 10 feet. A tall zombie slammed into her back, its hands wrapping around her as its teeth drew blood. She screamed as she fell, her knife clattering to the ground. Each and every zombie in the building turned to screaming Marge. Larry stood dumbfounded, his hands shaking as his brain tried to process what was happening. Every zombie in the building rushed at her, snarling and growling. Blood flowed freely as the screams stopped. Barry smacked his head, and Larry shook himself, still hardly believing his eyes. "Back," Barry whispered, gesturing to them. Larry nodded, turning to the others. "Greg, Stephen, Tina," he whispered, pushing Anna to break her out of her trance. They followed, unable to comprehend what had happened. Barry walked backward, gesturing to Greg to do the same. Larry's eye caught something moving. It rushed down the stairs as fast as a speeding bullet, bearing down on unsuspecting Barry. Its snarls masked by the cacophony coming from downstairs, its bloody teeth bared. There was no thinking, no yelling, just movement. Larry ran up the stairs, disregarding the noise his steps made. He met the short brunette zombie halfway, stabbing for her ear. Missed. The knife sank into the thing's neck as his arms, legs, and chest hit it sideways. His momentum and power lifted it up, and they slammed into the wall. His knee and elbow embedded into its hip and shoulder. The thing screeched, and Larry pushed himself off, but it grabbed his arm. Nails sank into his shirt and towel, ripping both away as the zombie pulled itself after him. Larry saw its jaws open, saw death coming for him. The wooden cutting board smashed into it, closing the jaws of death and crushing the thing's skull against the wall. Barry swung again. Blood sprayed the wall and Barry's and Larry's hands as Anna grabbed him. Greg and Tina had already opened the emergency door, beckoning them in. The 3 of them rushed in, closing the door. "Thank you," Larry said, leaning against the wall. "Thank you," Barry said, grabbing his arm. "Did it get you?" "Don't know." Larry turned his arms, showing his forearms. "That was Helen," Barry said. "The office manager?" Larry asked. "No scratches," Barry said, nodding. "Thank God," Larry thought, letting himself sag against the door. Why did she run upstairs? And how did she turn? "You are asking the wrong guy," Barry said, flexing his arms. "Crashing its skull was harder than I imagined." "Jesus, Barry," Larry said. "What?" "I mean it," Barry frowned. Something slammed against the door. Larry jumped away, but the big green emergency door held. "Shit. We need to bar the door." "Barricaded how?" Greg asked. They have the pull side, right? Anna asked. Larry nodded, unsure why that mattered. Then this should work, she said, taking her towel off and wrapping it around the doorknobs. I guess that can work for now, Barry said, using his keycard to open the glass office door. But we will have to barricade this one as well. As fast as possible, Anna said. Larry found himself nodding along as they entered the office proper. Now that the fight was over, the adrenaline drained, leaving his body heavy and aching, and his mind panicking. What was I thinking? He asked himself, brushing past Barry. I don't even like the guy. Larry leaned against a table, eyes closed, as the scene replayed in his mind. Rushing up the stairs, missing the stab, the slam, and then her nails on his forearm. Her jaws closed in on his face. Death coming for him. His whole life flashed before his eyes again, only one image remaining. Mighty, his large black German shepherd, locked in his apartment. Jesus, he thought. I almost died. And for what? Barry? Larry turned to see the man giving orders. He really did seem to enjoy this, or at least find himself in it. I have to get home. Larry straightened himself. I will get home. We should barricade the second door too, Larry said. We will, as soon as this is done, Barry said, directing Anna and Tina left and right. They stood on chairs, holding the large carpet before the glass door. That's good. Table, he whispered. Greg and Stephen placed a table vertically, followed by another one. It was far from perfect, but it stopped the zombies from seeing inside, and it offered some protection. Larry, you good? Barry asked. I will be, he said. Let's do the other side and get something to eat. Barry grinned. Now we're talking. Larry tried for a smile as they circled the office, but it looked terrible. Most of their work colleagues paced around the office, barely interacting with those at their desks, staring at nothing, or on their phones. And Larry understood both urges. He simultaneously wanted to hide under the table until it all passed and rush home to save his dog. That's the difference, he realized. The men and women pacing around the office were parents. Could I use that? He thought, grabbing one of the tables. Help us out here, Barry said. Tim grabbed the carpet, and talkative Janet joined him. However, the woman had been suspiciously silent since the whole ordeal began. Table, Barry whispered. Larry and Greg lowered one. Marty and Stephen placed another. Good. I think that should do for now. Yes, it will, Larry said, grabbing Janet's shoulder. How are you holding up? She looked at his arm, then up at his face, and the woman broke down. Larry stood there awkwardly for a moment until Barry pushed him into the woman. She threw her arms around him, and he hugged her back as she cried her eyes out into his shirt. He turned to Barry, who gave him a thumbs up. What the hell is wrong with that man? Larry asked himself. Franz is not, she sobbed. Not picking up. Larry patted her head, unsure who Franz was, but he didn't ask. Barry, on the other hand, had no such qualms. Franz is your husband, right? My son, she sobbed even more. Larry made a face at the man, and he shrugged, not giving a damn. Or did he? Why would he ask if he didn't care? What a strange man, Larry thought, patting her head. Everything will be okay. We make it out of here and... He trailed off, unsure what to say. And make sure he is safe. We will? Janet asked. Larry nodded. But we will have to prepare for that. Mind grabbing someone else and checking the fridge? Seeing what food we have so we can make dinner and plan on a full stomach. She stared at him, then nodded, tears streaming down her face. Any wishes? Oh, whatever we have, Larry said, turning to Barry. Do you have any tuna left? The man shook his head. grabbing the cigarette pack from his pocket, then seemed to realize that his hands were bloody. "I ate it all. But you still have your hot pockets left." True, Larry thought. However, it must have gotten cold by now. "We should wash up," Barry snorted, shaking his head as if Larry said something funny. Larry stared at the man as they entered the bathroom. He smiled knowingly, as if they had just exchanged some inside joke. The only problem: Larry was on the outside of whatever inside joke Barry had just heard, and he didn't feel like asking. "How many boxes do you have?" Barry asked, scrubbing his hands clean. "Of Hot Pockets?" The man nodded. 2.5, or a little less than half. "Why?" "Because it's a quick, tasty meal. And I know for a fact, it is the only proper food we have here." It was Larry's turn to snort as he scrubbed his hands clean. "What?" Barry asked, drying his hands and grabbing his cigarettes. "I never considered Hot Pockets good food, let alone proper." Barry snorted, putting a cigarette into his mouth. "Want one?" "I quit." "So?" Barry asked, lighting it up. "The smoke detectors might go off," Larry pointed out, the smoke wafting into his face. "From 1 or 2 cigarettes?" Barry shook his head. "Get a grip and take a swig, Larry." "Fuck it, cancer will take time. And a zombie is far more likely to kill you," Barry said, passing him one. Larry took the cigarette. A sweet, burning sensation filled his mouth and throat as smoke rushed into his lungs. He felt dizzy for a moment, lighter than he had been in weeks. Then it passed, a light buzz settling in. "Jesus," he said, holding back a cough. "This is terrible." "Why are you grinning then?" Barry asked. Larry let the smoke escape from his nose as he exited the bathroom. Anna waited for them there, hands nervously playing with a bundle of keys. "Since when do you smoke?" "Now and again," Larry said. "What's that?" "Keys to the storage, archive, and service room." "Amazing. Lead the way," Larry said. "Dinner is almost ready. Don't you wish to eat first?" Anna asked. "Not a bad idea," Barry said, entering the kitchen. Larry let Anna go first, puffing on his cigarette like he hadn't in ages because he hadn't. 9 years, to be precise, since his father was diagnosed with cancer. Janet and Tina beckoned them to sit. Hot Pockets, ham and cheese sandwiches, and 3 cut-up apples arrayed at the table as if it were a buffet. "Thank you for cooking," Larry said. "This couldn't be called cooking," Tim muttered. "It looks really good," Anna said, smiling. Silence fell over them as they began their lunchtime ritual, eating in silence. This time, people didn't glance at Anna and Tina but at Larry and Barry. Larry cleared his throat. "Guys, I will be leaving as soon as the sun sets." "Where to?" Tina asked. "Home." "But Larry, you promised," Janet said, "and we will look for Franz. But I need to get home first." "When are we going?" Barry asked. "I can't ask you to come along." "You don't have to," Barry said, slapping his shoulder. "Barry, no. It's almost 80 blocks on foot. There is no need for you to endanger yourself for me." "Oh, don't be stupid," Barry snapped. "You are my best fucking friend. I'd go to bat for you at the devil." Best friends. The men barely ever spoke, and when they did, Barry did most of the speaking. Larry felt a pang of sorrow and disgust in his gut. Sorrow for Barry and his life if Larry was his best friend, and disgust with himself for never making the extra effort. "Barry, can I speak to you privately?" he asked, opening the kitchen door. The man nodded, taking angry steps outside. "Look, Larry, Barry, man, I don't like you. I never really did." "Dude," Larry cut him off, unsure why the words stumbled out of him. He was usually better at this. "Dude, you reek of cigarettes and fish, and you talk about the most random shit. We were never friends." I was just never rude enough to tell you to buzz off, like the rest did. Barry watched him, his eyes growing hard, as he pulled out 2 cigarettes from the pack. You don't like me? Larry shook his head. Barry put one into his mouth, the other pointing at Larry. We were never friends? No, dude, never, Larry said, shocked that he even had to explain it. He lit the cigarette up, pushing the other one into Larry's hand. Take it. I don't... Take it! Barry snapped. Larry nodded, taking the cigarette. Barry stared at him, eyes as hard as concrete, flames dancing between them. You know I hate liars. Larry puffed on the cigarette, staring at the floor. Look, man, I didn't want to... You stupid fuck thought I would believe you? Barry asked, barely keeping his voice down. What? You would just body slam a zombie for anyone? No, not just anyone. No, for a person you dislike. Get the fuck out of here, Larry. It would seem so, yes, Larry said. Fuck you. You ain't getting rid of me that easy. I appreciate you trying to protect me. I really do. But where you go, I go. And you know it applies both ways. Barry, I'm serious. You should either stay here or try to reach your own home. I'm serious too. We will get mighty, then circle back to my apartment. And then, well, we'll see. Larry stared at the insane man. He knows Mighty's name? How? Why? What? Why would you do that? You and I, we go together like iced tea and warm weather. Barry sang. Larry and Barry, just a letter apart, but always together. How did I end up here? Arguing with the guy I avoided during lunch, planning on saving Mighty with the man I wouldn't lend a pen to. Fuck, Larry whispered, the scene at the stairs playing in his mind's eye again. That was different, a spur-of-the-moment thing. This was insane. Nice try, man. Barry threw a friendly arm over his shoulder. The shorter man barely reached over, but he got on his tiptoes, his breath hot on Larry's cheek, almost kissing him as he whispered, Ride or die, man. Larry and Barry, Mr. Ride and Mr. Died. Larry stared ahead, puff, exhale, puff, exhale. Mr. Ride and Mr. Died. Fuck me, Larry thought. How twisted could this day get? Larry and Barry ate with the rest of the office, and they had a decent conversation at the table for the first time in forever. Partly pushed by the adrenaline and fear, partly unnerved by the sudden silence after the screams stopped. But everyone had something to say. Some wanted to stay, some wanted to leave. And nobody seemed to agree on where to go. Well, the others couldn't. Larry had already decided to go home, and Barry decided he would follow. Both men stared at the printed maps, looking for the least populated way to cross the 76 blocks. Larry checked his phone. The direct route to his apartment in Marble Hill would take them about 3 hours on foot. Way too long. And they would travel fully through residential areas, not to mention the fact that they could get separated or lost. We need a fallback point and a resting spot, Larry said. We need 6, Barry muttered, stuffing his face with a hot pocket. Larry nodded. That would be practical. But well, they needed to pick a route first. 5th Avenue along the park? We can go through the park. Fewer people means fewer zombies and more places to hide. And less light, Larry muttered, thinking. That's both a good and a bad thing. True, we can keep close to the 5th and follow it? Larry nodded, looking at the maps. I don't think we should go past Bronx College. I went to school there. Barry smiled bitterly. A bunch of liberal pricks. Okay, that's a no? Yeah, we should probably stick to FDB, then move to St. Nicholas Avenue. That's not a lot better, Larry muttered. No, but we can use the church as a safe spot. The man pointed at the masses of greenery at the St. Nicholas Playground and J.R. Park. The same logic applies. Plus, there is a bathroom right there. We could use it in a pinch. But we have to go the other way, Stephen said. So you make your own plans, Barry said, and the building's elevator began moving. The men looked at each other. Is that the elevator? Tina asked. Seems to be, Barry said, returning to the map. His finger never left the J.R. Park. Larry nodded. He couldn't argue with the man's logic. Okay, we'll go after sundown. Who is coming along? I am, Anna said. Where do you live? Barry asked. Nowhere now. I'm sticking with you, she said, looking Larry in the eyes. Is that okay? Fine by me. Anyone else? Larry asked, and the elevator pinged. Is that on our floor? We will leave the building with you, but go elsewhere then, Stephen said. Noah and Leah nodded. I live half a block away from Noah, so I'm with them, Tim said. I'm coming too, Greg said. I will too, Marty said. Glad to have you. Do you want to go somewhere specific? Will we stop by the Washington Heights Library? Janet asked before the others could answer. Do you live there? Larry asked. Yes, Franz should be home. How close to it do you actually live? Barry asked. Just over Amsterdam Avenue, Janet said. That's not en route, Larry realized, but said nothing, thinking about how to handle it. Barry, though, did more talking than he did thinking. That's quite out of the way. Could we get Franz to come to us? He is still not picking up. Okay, give us the address. Your apartment will be another fallback point, Larry said, adjusting the destination on his phone. It's an hour away, so approximately halfway there. The bubbles could serve as another safe spot, Barry said. It's about 10 minutes away, and probably empty. Smart, Larry said. Let's learn the maps by heart, print out a few more versions, eat, and rest. As soon as the sun sets, we are heading. Something tapped the office door. Larry turned to Barry. Did you hear that? Barry nodded, taking a knife. Another hit. Not a slam, just a light tap. Is that the door? Tim asked. Seems to be, Larry said, grabbing his knife and heading out. Barry and a few others followed. Another tap. That's the door, Janet said, panic entering her voice. Quiet, Barry whispered, followed by another tap. Larry crept forward, listening. Were those moans? And scratches, he thought, inching forward. Another tap and a moan? He reached the door, peering past the carpet. Two bloody figures shambled past. His heart stopped before kicking into overdrive. He let the carpet fall, hearing nothing but his own heart in his ears. How? What? Barry asked. At least two, Larry whispered, his mind racing. How did they break the emergency door? Anna and Tina went pale, and Janet began pacing and muttering to herself. Greg gritted his teeth, gripping the knife tighter. Larry stared at them all, barely noticing them. One train of thought bounced around his head. Will the glass door hold? Could they wait for the sundown? If not, could he get to Mighty without the cover of the night? Barry pushed past him, peering outside, his face splitting into a manic grin. Let's loot the storage room. Chapter 2. First Night Out. Barry unlocked the storage door, standing in the middle of it, and pushing it slowly open as if revealing the most fantastic thing to the world. And not a poorly stacked storage room. But the man seemed not to care. He rushed in, grabbing the broom and breaking the head off. Larry followed him in with much less gusto and a more methodical approach. Mainly because his brain searched for anything to latch onto and not to think about Mighty alone at home. Alone, scared, and hungry. He grabbed the one with a telescopic stainless steel handle. He could use it as a reach weapon and as a close-up weapon. We put knives on this and bam, Barry stabbed the air. Or like this. Larry swung it like a bat. Or like that, is that? Oh shit, smart, Barry said, turning around. I want one too. There should be some more, Larry said, searching for the screwdrivers. He found two, as the rest finally joined them, standing uncertainly at the door. They began discussing how to proceed. Everyone wanted to know the plan, and some even had their own ideas as they armed themselves. But in the end, Barry did most of the talking. Larry did most of the nodding, and all seemed to have their eyes glued on him. Why look at me? Larry asked himself, duct taping magazines to his up and lower arms. Do I even have a plan? Larry thought, duct taping a knife to his steel handle. They seemed to think so. They seemed to expect him to have one. Taking his silence as an admission to working something out. His roll ran out. More duct tape, Barry said, throwing a roll at him. There is nothing it can't fix. I'm pretty sure it couldn't fix the zombies outside, Larry muttered. With a little help from us? Of course it can. The man grinned, offering him a hammer. With Barry's nonchalant attitude and shit-talking, Larry could almost forget the undead beasts at their front door. Almost. He took the hammer, offering a fake smile in return. His mind churned as their eyes bore into his skull. What could he come up with? What could they do? Tackle one problem at a time, he told himself. And his mind began troubleshooting, focusing on the biggest problem first. At least 2 zombies in front of their glass door. We need to kill them first, he thought, turning to Barry. He was the only one who didn't freeze when Helen attacked. Well, Larry didn't either, but his body moved before he registered what was happening, so that didn't count. Larry? Anna asked. Still thinking, he muttered, his mind thinking of the safest way to face the things. It would be perfect if they were gagged, bound, and blindfolded. Larry snorted at his dumb brain, and it dawned on him. His intrusive thoughts just offered him a solution. I think we could use one door as a distraction and exit out of the other, and take them from behind. 2 of us against 2 of them, Barry said, nodding. I like the sound of that. Distract them how? Tina asked. No, just knock on it periodically. Nothing too overt. We don't want them to break the glass, Barry cut in. But people turned to him, waiting for him to confirm. Why? Larry asked himself, nodding uncertainly. What about the emergency door? Anna asked. That's where we need Greg and Marty, he said, looking at the older men. What could they do? We will go for the zombies, and you need to check the door. See how they got in and if it can be rebarricaded. I'm coming too, Anna said. Larry wanted to stop her, but he wasn't her boss, and she was the one who helped him up and found the keys. He smiled, keeping quiet, as that hadn't been a question. What if you get stuck outside? Stephen asked. You can hold the door for us, peering out so you can let us in, Larry said. The man didn't seem happy with the suggestion, but he nodded. He was probably glad he didn't have to face the undead outside. What if they broke the door down? Tim asked. Then we are fucked, Barry said. Let's end them. Greg, Marty, and Stephen removed the tables as Larry stood to the side, listening to the things shamble and moan, bumping periodically against each other as if attracted by the noise the other was making. The thought made his skin crawl. Janet looked up, then back at her phone. She was texting Tina and Leah, who were on the knocking duty. A silent knock echoed, sending the 2 zombies into a little frenzy. The moans turned to growls, the dragging and lethargic steps falling hard on the tiled floor as they rushed over, slamming into the glass, scratching at it. Larry could only hear it on this side, and didn't want to envision how it was on the other side. By the faces around him, Everyone agreed with his assessment. Well, all but Barry, who puffed on his cigarette, eyes closed as he enjoyed the light nicotine buzz. Anna finally returned, now wearing a long leather coat and a hat. Duct-taped magazines over her pants and under the jacket. He could see the bulge around her biceps and wrist as she carried a frying pan. A frying pan? Larry blinked at the woman, hardly believing his eyes. They didn't have the best options, true, but a frying pan seemed insane. But well, he had a spear made out of a metal broom handle and an adjustable wrench tucked in his belt. So who was he to judge? And a screwdriver, as if that would do any good. Stephen cleared his throat, and Larry turned to him. The door was ready to be opened. Shivers ran down his spine, anticipation and anxiety making his hands shake and his stomach twist. Barry puffed out the last of his cigarette, exhaling the smoke and finally opening his eyes. The man was ready for business, and that made Larry even more nervous. He closed his eyes, counting to 10, and exhaling deeply, calming his nerves. "Text them," he whispered. Another silent knock, and the shambles turned to a run as the things growled and slammed against the other door. Larry was the first through the door, the metallic smell of blood and the stench of sweat filling his nose. He looked left, then right. The green door seemed unbroken. The two zombies taking up all his attention. He moved as slowly and silently as possible, his tiptoes barely touching the tiles as he closed in. Barry joined him. He too moved in a crouch, his longer spear held in both hands. Larry held his breath, closing in, aiming, and waiting. The carpet on the other side moved, revealing two silhouettes. The zombies went wild, growling, snarling, and scratching at the blurry glass. Just one more step, he thought, his lungs burning as he didn't dare to breathe. Larry made that last step, planting his feet and pulling his hand back. The stainless steel spear glistened in the fluorescent lighting. He waited, his lungs burning, his muscles taut, but he held back, allowing Barry to take his position. Then they both stabbed. It didn't go as they planned. The timing was off. Larry's knife spear stabbed upwards, entering the skull through the cranial opening, and the thing stiffened, falling forward. Barry's strike went too high into the occipital bone. The knife drew blood but got stuck. The duct tape tore. The long wooden spear continued upwards, past the knife, its momentum pulling Barry forward into the turning zombie. Larry tried helping, pulling on his shorter spear, but it didn't budge. He grabbed for the screwdriver, but he wasn't fast enough. Larry could do nothing but watch as it lunged at Barry, who fumbled with his long wooden staff, trying to hit it, but he had no leverage, no power. But Anna did. The frying pan connected with its head, and something cracked the frying pan. The handle and the pan broke apart as the zombie staggered back, giving Larry enough time to pull the damned screwdriver out and lunge at it as it tried recovering. He swung down with all his might and drove the screwdriver through the zombie's forehead all the way to the handle. Pain blossomed in his fist as it met the thing's head, pushing it down. The dead undead sat on his ass, and Larry tripped over Barry, hitting the wall head first. The world flashed white. Then blackness consumed it, as a pulsing, throbbing pain echoed in his mind. Larry felt hands on his back and shook his head, trying to orient himself, or to banish the ringing in his ears. Either worked, though neither worked. "Are you okay?" Anna asked. "My head hurts," he said, finally opening his eyes. Barry stood by his side, grin as wide and bright as the sun. "What? I wonder what you would do for people you like." Fuck off," Larry snarled, and so did the zombie in the elevator. They all turned to the closed door. Now that the hallway zombies were no more, they finally heard it move, groan, and growl as it slammed against the closed elevator door. "That must be how they got here," Greg said, pointing behind him. Larry looked at Marty, who stood by the emergency exit. The big green door was genuinely intact. "A zombie on a lift," Barry said. "Now that's new." "In a lift," Marty said. "How did it get in?" "Probably someone tried to escape them on the upper floors," Larry guessed. "They got in, got down, got attacked, and ran back up." "To our floor?" Anna asked. "What are the odds?" 1 in 17, Larry said. "We need to deal with it. It could hit another button, God forbid, the open door button." "So we click it first," Barry said, walking towards it. "No, stop," Anna said. All eyes turned to her. "Let's be smart about this. What if there are more than one? Let's barricade the door, then open it." "With tables from the inside?" Greg asked. They began discussing it as the thing went wild on the lift door. Larry studied the door, his mind working. Anna was right. They should be smart about it, even if only one was inside. One almost killed them all twice now. But Greg had a point. Bringing the bulky work desk out here wouldn't be practical. But Larry knew what would. He turned back to the unbarricaded door and rushed in past Stephen, Noah, Janet, and others. They all stared at him. He grabbed the metal coat hanger, tossing the jackets as he did. "Larry?" Barry peeked through the door. "What the hell, man?" "This hell," Larry said, pushing past him and others to the lift. "You are both right," he said, pointing at Barry. "Grab the other end. Push it against the wall like so," he said, holding his end against the corner of the elevator door. Barry did the same, the metal bar spanning the length of the elevator door, leaving both men to stare at the wall, but also far away from danger. "Smart," Greg said. "Yeah," Larry said, letting go. "You three get ready to kill how many are inside, and use screwdrivers. They have better leverage." Barry grinned at him. "What?" "I get to push the button," the man said, almost giggling. 3, 2, 1. The lift dinged, and a blonde female zombie rushed straight into the coat hanger. The plan worked perfectly. It slammed into it, and the men held it back. Greg stepped forward, ramming his screwdriver into its head. The blonde zombie crumbled to the ground, a blue screwdriver handle adorning her head. Like a morbid accessory. Good that it was only one, Larry thought, feeling the burn in his arms, legs, and back. If there had been more than two, they would have broken through. Shit. I need to think things better through. Anna grabbed his arm, and he blinked down at her. "How is your head?" "Still spinning," he said. "But I'll live." "You better. We still got a lot of ground to cover," Barry said, offering him a smoke. I stand by my fuck you. Mr. Ride saved his Mr. Died. So yeah, you can fuck me. Barry winked as if that was the cleverest joke ever. Larry stared at the man, then shook his head. "We need to wash up first." "You do? I didn't get my hands dirty," Barry said, lighting up another one. Larry smiled weakly as they returned to the office, his aching head and throbbing mind turning to Mighty. Just until the sun sets, he thought. Then I get home. Larry let himself lie down, resting in a beam of sunlight as the whole damned room spun. The scene replayed in his mind's eye, the stab, the drop, and the helplessness as he tried pulling the spear out, and the terror as Barry missed. If the zombie had turned to him, well, Anna would have probably got there in time. Probably, he thought, his mind turning to Helen's attack. The terror he felt as those jaws rushed at his face. Soft footsteps sounded on the carpeted floor, and Larry cracked one eye open. The room still spun, and the sun still shone. And Anna still looked worried sick. This time, she brought him a glass. "Can you sit up? What's that in your hand?" "Something to ease the pain. Marge's bag is still here." Larry frowned, sitting up. "Thanks. How is that relevant?" She was the med lady? Anna asked, as if it were obvious. Even I knew that, Barry said, holding forth the steel handle with a screwdriver attached to the top. Actually, it had 2 handleless screwdrivers duct-taped to the top. A new and improved spear. Thanks. How's the head? Painful. How is the planning going? Larry asked, drinking the medicine. 2 more resting spots added, Barry said, grabbing a cigarette. You want one? I have a headache. Barry's eyebrows shot up. So what? I don't want one, thanks. Suit yourself. I would advise you and everyone else to hit the head before we head out, he said, walking away. He's a strange man, Anna said. Yeah, Larry said, letting himself lie back down. Anna stayed with him for a bit longer, keeping him silent company, but she too went to the kitchen. Or maybe the toilet, as Barry suggested. He was strange, true, but, well, he was also extremely adept at apocalypse, survival, this whole shit. Whatever it was. He drifted off into the nightmare land, where zombies hunted mighty down, where his dog refused to listen and got bitten, turning, and Larry had to watch as it stood back up, growling and snarling, coming for his throat. Larry couldn't defend himself. He could only watch as the thing he loved most in the world sank its teeth into his throat. Then they both rose, dog and owner together again, as undead abominations. Still, they played catch, with Barry being the ball. It was kind of wholesome and creepy at the same time. A hand touched his cheek, and Larry's eyes opened slowly. Anna sat beside him, her leather coat back on, as sterile blue lights buzzed over her head and didn't spin. It's sundown. Finally, he thought, pushing himself up. I'm coming, my boy. I'm coming. The whole group stood by the door, both those leaving and those staying. Staring at each other, no one said a word. No one moved to open the door. The whole situation felt unreal. Larry had known these people for almost 7 years, but rarely spoke to them, barely knew some of their names, or not at all in some cases. In a lot of cases, he thought, looking over the 24 men and women staying behind. They looked scared and angry. Larry turned to both groups that were leaving. They looked scared and anxious. Well, most did. One man's lips turned upwards as smoke escaped them. Barry looked like he always did. Better even. Larry nodded at him, counting his lucky stars that psycho was on his side, and turned back to the ones staying behind. Are you sure you want to stay? Dominic nodded. Good. Well, I wish you all the best. Barricade the door and be ready. Same to you. I hope you get where you are going, Dominic said, offering his hand. Larry took it. Everyone ready? Barry asked, opening the door. Guess we are, Larry thought, doing one last weapons check. 2 screwdrivers, 1 spear, 1 wrench, and 1 hammer, as well as a backpack with 2 water bottles, an apple, and 2 knives, just in case. Let's go, Larry said, following Barry out. The musty and sickly sweet smell of drying blood climbed his nostrils and hammered at his brain. Jesus, he thought, cringing as they passed through. That was bad. Terrible. But it was almost over. Anna unwrapped the doorknobs, turning to look at him. Larry nodded, taking point. Barry went on his left, closer to the exit, and covering his weaker side. Norm had Larry's right side. Greg, Marty, Noah, Stephen, and Tim brought up the rear as Tina, Anna, Janet, and Leah held the middle. Larry took a deep breath and pushed the door open. Nothing attacked them. That was a good sign. A bad sign was the bloody trail leading up and down the stairs, meaning they probably had more than 1 zombie above them. Then there was Helen's half-eaten body. Zombies eat their own? Larry asked, pushing the door fully open and inching forward. Looking up and down the stairs. Seeing no immediate threat, He signaled for the rest to follow. Barry did Barry things, jamming the door open so they could get back swiftly if necessary. Hopefully they wouldn't need to, Larry thought, half crouching, half crawling to the edge. The whole building seemed to groan under its own weight, or maybe it was the distant zombies. Their groans and moans blended into one barely audible background track as they reached the corner. Larry peeked around it. 8 undead turned to at least 17, if not more. Fuck, he thought, staring at the things mingling around, moaning and groaning as they bumped into each other, the white Ford and the entrance door. Even Barry went pale at the sight. Shit, Larry thought, turning back to wide-eyed faces. All stared past him. We need a new exit strategy, Larry thought, tapping Barry's shoulder. The man looked up, a question mark on his face. Back, we, inside. Larry mouthed at the man, and Barry scowled. What? We need. Outside. Barry mouthed back. No. Go. Back. Larry shook his head, lifting his 5 fingers. Minutes. Think. Barry's eyes narrowed, then he nodded. Thank God, Larry thought as they gestured for the rest to get back. They did. Now Larry and Barry were suddenly bringing up the rear, and every second felt like an eternity, with his back exposed. He could almost feel the undead eyes on him, all until the green door clicked shut without incident. Lucky, Larry thought, turning around to look back at all the faces staring at him. But for once, he had a plan in mind. The same things assaulting his nose will be their tickets out of this mess, or the building, at least. We will use these 3 as bait and draw the horde away from the door, Larry said. How? Anna asked. By using the elevator. Check for phones. Barry, give me a hand, and let's throw them inside. Phones? Tina asked. Yes, to play a song and make noise. And these things, Larry kicked the dead blonde undead, are food. But first, Barry said, offering Larry a cigarette. You know what? Larry said, taking it. I think you're right. He lit it, and the stench of the cigarette pushed out the sickly, sweet smell of death. Barry and Larry stuffed the 3 corpses into the elevator as the others searched their pockets. Cigarettes made the whole ordeal easier to bear. They found 3 phones, which was to be expected, for what grown-ass man or a woman goes anywhere without their phone? Larry tapped his number in each, texting himself and creating 2 more backup plans in the process. Oh, Barry, lead them out. We got 35 seconds, he said, turning on the alarm clock on one of the phones. See you at the corner, Barry grinned, leading them out. Don't take too long, Anna said, holding the door. Larry smiled at her, stuffing the phone in the back pocket of one of the zombies. She nodded, letting the emergency door fall close. Larry took a deep, smoke-filled and still stinking breath, clicked the ground floor button, and stepped out. He watched in silence as the elevator door slowly closed shut. He heard the gears move and groan as the metal box descended. Dozens of zombie moans followed the sound of the elevator moving, some over him, some under him, but all reacted. That was the point, Larry thought, opening the green door. The coast was still clear, and the group knelt by the corner. All had their eyes glued to the first floor, anxiously waiting. Larry crouch-jogged across the hallway, keeping his eye on the floors above him. The lift pang echoed as he reached the corner, and the moans, grunts, and shambles turned to growls, snarls, and steps. Larry knelt next to Barry, watching the things move to the elevator, but only the ones close to it. The zombies at the door seemed not to hear it, or they ignored it. Shit, what now? Larry asked himself. The whole plan was to move the zombies from the exit so they could escape. But that failed. There were still 6 at the door. The alarm sounded, and they exploded with movement. like Olympic athletes, one moment standing idle, the other sprinting down the lobby, hurtling themselves into other zombies and straight into the elevator. The door tried closing on them, but couldn't as the things feasted on the dead zombies. The growls and snarls echoed as the things fought for position. Steps echoed in the stairway. Larry and Barry looked at each other, then back at the dark hallway. Nothing yet, but they were coming. "Move! Move!" Larry whispered, already taking point. Barry matched his stride as they crouch-ran down the stairs. 15 feet seemed like an eternity, and it was. Larry turned back. The elevator zombies still jostling for position, feasting or trying to. The alarm still blaring, or whimpering, now that it was covered in dead and undead bodies. But the steps from overhead did not wane. They grew louder, more frantic, growls and snarls following them down. And Greg and Marty were still on the staircase, lagging far behind. Larry gestured for the two men to hurry, letting the rest run past him. Noah held the door open as Barry took point outside, doing hopefully nothing but standing watch. Larry turned to the elevator, and they were still busy eating. He looked over Greg's shoulders, still saw nothing. But well, that could change any second. He felt his heart in his ears and mind as he crouched in the open lobby. A group of at least 16 zombies, not even 20 feet away, feasting on undead flesh. Another group, who knows how large or small, hurtling down the stairs. And two men he should survive with, taking their precious time closing the gap. He wanted to yell, to scream at them. He wanted to leave them behind. But Larry gritted his teeth, eyes scanning the lobby and the stairs. The two men reached him, passed him, and went out. Larry backed out, closing the door behind him. And finally, they arrived. 6 zombies rounded the corner of the stairs, all but falling down as they rushed, drawn by the still ringing phone and the growls of others. Larry watched them slam into the rest, like a mindless wave of drugged-out, burning men-goers. Only bloody, snarling, and dead instead of high, insane, and horny. Larry watched them for a moment longer, then finally dared to breathe. He took a deep breath of fresh night air for what felt like the first time in a year, even though it was barely a day. Larry exhaled, turning to face the night ahead of them. The lit streets of New York never looked emptier, nor dead. And yet he could hear them in the distance, shambling around and moaning. "I'm coming," he thought, the steel handle suddenly slippery with sweat. "Just a little longer." "Let's go," Larry said, retaking point. Barry grinned like a madman. Chapter 3: The Winding Path. Larry stood at the office door, taking in the scene. Discarded clothes, bags, and high heels littered the street. Dried and fresh blood covered the pavement, buildings, and parked cars. Bodies everywhere. Even so, his eyes were glued to one particular body, or what was left of it. The little girl he watched ran down, tripped up, and finally eaten. Even by her own mom. "Move," he told himself, scanning the street again, focusing on the undead instead of the dead. There were not that many, only 4, in fact, on the whole street. And they congregated left of them, away from the park. Larry counted his lucky stars and finally moved away from the door. Away from the safety it provided and into the light night. The rest followed. Quiet as church mice, they rushed behind a parked car, then to the next in line, then to a truck. Men and women piled up on his back as Larry looked under the truck, searching for any signs of the shambling beasts. He saw none, but he heard them all the time, and it made his skin crawl. Moans and groans filled the night air, as did their stumbling steps and bumps against cars and windows. They were in a terrible spot. Larry peeked around the truck, saw nothing, and pulled back. To intersection clear, he mouthed at Barry and Stephen. "We left," Stephen mouthed. "We straight," Larry mouthed back. Luck. You too. Stephen motioned all clear to his group. Larry turned to Barry, who grinned an excited and thrilled wide-eyed grin. Two of them took point, leading them towards the intersection, heart pounding in his ears, hands sweating on the steel spear despite the cool night air. Eyes glued to the big clearing ahead, the intersection of Park Avenue and 59th Street. That would be their true test. Crossing it in full view of every zombie on that massive road. At the corner, they slowed. Larry leaned out, peering right down the avenue. Blood in his veins froze. Dozens of zombies shambled about, moaning and groaning, bumping into each other, abandoned cars, and even trees. And the closest one was just a stone's throw away. 20 feet at most. Shit, Larry thought, turning his head left, and saw nothing. Mainly because of the car wreckage just off the intersection. 9 cars piled up, one on the other, blocking his view of the street behind it. Could I use that? Larry thought, studying the layout of the street. He drove past this intersection hundreds of times and never actually considered what was around him. Now he did. The parked cars, the clustered road, the zombies all around them. And yet, none were ahead of them. The street they had to rush through seemed empty. Okay, he told himself, turning back to the men and women behind him, then to the wreckage again. That was their way over. It had to be. Larry motioned for them to pull back, and they did. All eyes glued to him. 20 zombies, Larry mouthed, pointing right. Left? Stephen asked. Not sure. Larry shrugged, looking at them. How sure am I? He asked himself, and realized it didn't really matter. Not really. He was getting over that intersection, and back home one way or the other. And by the looks of the faces around him, he was the only one who actually had any semblance of a plan. Car wreckage, Larry mouthed, pointing left. We hide and go over? Barry mouthed. Larry nodded, and the man grinned. Crazy, as always. Move, Larry mouthed, pointing across the street. And they did. In the shuffle of bodies, Anna somehow ended up on his right side. She smiled at him, and he nodded back, studying the street around them. Still only 4 zombies on the far end of the street. That was something. They hid behind a car, checked the pavement. No zombies. They rushed to the corner. Larry looked left and saw a lone zombie bumping into a car. Repeatedly, Stephen pushed past him, studied the street, and nodded. The man led his team to the left, leaving Larry and the rest behind. Okay, less people to worry about, he thought, taking a deep breath and leaving the cover of the building. Larry Crouch ran, Barry hot on his heels. The 2 men ran into the cover offered by the wreckage, on the same side as Stephen and his, away from the dozens of undead eyes. Anna and Tina were next to cross the street, followed by Janet and Marty. Greg was the last to cross. He breathed a sigh of relief as the older man scuttled beside them. Larry looked his people over, giving them a thumbs up. They responded unenthusiastically, and he couldn't blame them. That was their life now, hiding in the shadows and hoping for the best. Barry tapped his arm. Larry looked at the man, then followed his gaze. Stephen and his crew crouched behind a car, not moving. Larry frowned, leaning left to see what was going on. The lone zombie somehow became 3. And now, from this vantage point, he saw at least 2 more down the street. Don't attack, Larry thought, staring at them. Noah turned back to them, pale face and eyes wide. Don't panic, he thought. And luckily, Stephen didn't attack or panic. The man gestured for them to pull back. But where to? Larry studied their jerky and uncertain movements. Even Stephen seemed to question what to do next. Then their eyes met, and the man blinked, making a face. What? Larry thought as the man nodded at him. What does that mean? Larry thought and nodded back. slow and uncertain, watching them move over to him. Larry pointed across the street. They nodded and changed course. "Clear," Barry mouthed in his ear, his warm breath somehow still stinking of tuna. But Larry ignored it, letting the man lead as he covered his right. Putting himself between Barry and the mass of zombies, Larry glanced at them again. Some moved, some stood, but all moaned, somehow huddled closer together than before. The sound, he reminded himself, turning back to the task at hand. To the next car in line, they could hide behind. Tim tripped, stumbling into the car. The light tap sounded deafening in the night's silence. Larry stared at the man, then back at the open road where half their group was still exposed, trapped between the wreckage and the corner, in the full view of 24 zombies. "Fuck," Larry thought, pushing Anna past him. She understood, and so did Barry. The man retook the point as Larry gestured for the rest to hurry. They did, but this time, Larry didn't wait for them to catch up. He turned and crouch ran to the front, urging the rest to do the same. That was a mistake. Larry and Barry ran past a parked truck, right past a zombie. It just stood there, swaying back and forth. Larry didn't even have time to register what was happening, and Barry was on it. His metal spear stabbed upwards, and the thing stopped swaying, lurched forward, and pulled Barry along. If it falls, Larry thought, his body moving on its own. He caught the falling zombie without thinking. For a moment, he just stood there, the dead zombie in his hands, Barry crouching in front of him. His eyes stared up at Larry as if he had done something incredible, incredibly stupid, Larry thought. His arms and back burning with the effort. Holding a lifeless body was harder than he could have ever imagined. Greg joined him, and the three of them lowered it, careful not to make a sound. "Nice," Barry mouthed. "Stupid," he mouthed back. "Me?" Barry asked. Larry shook his head, pointing at himself. What if Barry had missed? What if it wasn't dead? What if he got its blood into his mouth? Would that infect me? Larry asked himself, staring at Barry's grin. No such thoughts passed through his head. Crazy bastard. "Move," he gestured onwards, and they did, rushing from car to truck and hiding, taking short breaks to scan the street. But it would seem that it was a lone zombie, which was incredibly lucky for them. Or was it? Larry asked himself as they pushed on. Why didn't it react to Tim's bump, or their run past it? They reached the next intersection. Could it have been death? Stephen rushed past him to the corner, looking left. Larry followed more slowly, carefully, and still got there. A group of at least 4 swayed and staggered. Moans fill the night, almost becoming white noise how constant they were. Stephen's back tensed, and his face turned into a grimace. The man lived with his family not far away from the offices, some 15 blocks south, but it would seem that every single route was blocked. Larry patted his shoulder, and the man shook his head. Larry understood the frustration. He felt it, in fact, but he wouldn't let it or anything else hold him back. He leaned to the right, looking down the final street they would have to cross to reach Central Park. It brimmed with zombies. He counted 7 in only one of the 2 masses of undead. What now, he thought. They could go right for another block and try to go up at the next intersection. But would that work for Stephen and his? Larry looked at the man, then checked the right side. A single zombie rocked back and forth on the left side of the pavement, looking inside the store. Why? He didn't know, nor did he care. Larry gestured right, indicating the right side of the pavement behind the bushes and stalls. Barry nodded, but Stephen shook his head. What? Barry mouthed. The man gestured left. No, Larry shook his head. Too many. Back then left. The man gestured frantically. One almost killed us, Larry mouthed, lifting 3 fingers. Too much. Stephen shook his head, and Noah backed him, gesturing at them all, then miming stabbing upwards. Norm nodded, as if his approval meant anything. Larry looked at Barry and Anna. The two couldn't have different facial expressions. She looked like she would be sick, and Barry seemed unbothered. Greg gestured for them to move on. Larry nodded, turning to Stephen. One more. He pointed right. Then up. He mimicked the way around the block and the zombies. Stephen shook his head, pointing back. Larry shook his head back at the man. Too many, he mouthed again. Don't care. Stephen gestured for his team to move back. And they did. The two men stared at each other, neither budging. Stephen's eyes softened. Help us, he mouthed. Please, the man breathed. Barely audible, but there. The first spoken word since they left the office. And it was a plea for help. Larry set his jaw, steeling his spine, and slowly, deliberately, shook his head, forcing himself to think of only one thing. Mighty. He would get home, and he would get his dog. No matter what. Stephen looked at him one last time, eyes growing hard as the man gave a curt nod and moved back. Larry looked after him, feeling the stone settle in his gut. Did I just let them die? Barry poked his ribs, motioning to the right. But Anna's eyes told him something else. Larry looked away from her, staring at the floor. They weren't his problem. They simply weren't. Where were they when he and Barry killed Helen? Where were they when his group took on the three in the hallway? Inside, hiding is where they were. Safe and away from danger. Larry turned to Barry, lifting his hand, ready to motion for them to continue. But his hand didn't fall. It wouldn't. He turned to Anna again, and she saw it in him. The smart, brilliant, and devious woman grabbed his other arm. Her hands were covered in a cold sweat, just as his were, and probably everyone else's in his little group, or Stephen's group in fact. But only Larry and Barry outright fought the things, and the two other people who had any other experience were with him, one urging him to move and the other begging him to stay, to help. Damn it, Larry thought, pointing backward after Stephen and his people, hoping, praying that that was the right decision. Anna smiled at him, and the rest nodded, faces grim, but they turned, ready to help. Only one man smiled. What? Larry asked him. Barry scuttled closer, so close Larry could smell the man's breath. I hope this doesn't bite us in the ass, the man whispered into his ear. The warm breath still reeked of fish, but Larry didn't mind that time. He just smiled. It was forced, yes, and he wanted to run and scream rather than help. But he still smiled at the bad joke and led them to their probable deaths. He darted to the car pileup, where Stephen and his team crouched in the shadows, faces pale, unaware he was closing in. Not until it was too late. Or it would have been if he were a zombie, and in that moment, Larry knew they would have died if he didn't help, and also that he should have left them to their devices. But it was too late now. He tapped his chest and pointed at them. Stephen nodded, pointing at the three zombies. Circle, Larry mouthed, mimicking them and circling the zombies. You that side? He pointed left. We this side. He pointed to the right. Then, Noah asked. We attack. He tapped his fingers together. Same time, Larry mouthed, holding 4 fingers up. Same time, he repeated, nodding at his fingers. Stephen gave him the thumbs up, and Larry nodded, returning to his group. They good? Barry asked, turning his thumb up like it was a scale. Larry stopped it halfway. The man shrugged, like it was to be expected, or like it didn't matter. Larry almost snorted at the insanity. Almost. Instead, he led them behind the abandoned cars, his heart pounding in his chest, wanting to break out, wanting to leave all of them behind and run home, to hug Mighty, feed him, and play with him. But Larry didn't. He held firm, Not even sure why, but he did, and questioning it with each step that brought him closer to the zombies. He saw Helen's jaws again, closing in on him. He saw Barry miss and the zombie lunge at him. But he also saw Barry saving his life, Anna saving Barry's, and Greg killing the blonde zombie. We can do this, he thought, stopping, listening to the things moan and groan. So close. So close he could actually distinguish two distinct voices as they shambled and bumped into each other. Two? Larry looked over the hood. Yes, there were only two zombies in the street. Where did the third one go? Larry looked around, spotting it down the street. It joined the other two by the food cart. It's now or never, he thought, looking at the people around him. Barry was still on his left, Greg and Marty on his right side. The rest had their back, leaving Anna and Tina as their last line of defense if one were to sneak up on them. Plan? Greg asked. Two. Larry tapped Barry's shoulder, then his chest. Barry. I. He pointed at Greg, then Marty. You, Marty. Us too? Marty asked, pointing at Greg. Larry nodded. Let's go, Barry mouthed and moved. Larry darted after him, Greg and Marty close behind them. The two zombies saw them and rushed, the moans turning to growls and shambles, turning to sprints. Stephen and the others didn't emerge from the opposite side, and Larry felt his stomach drop as his spear met the zombie's chest. It hit hard, driving him back, burning every muscle. The thing wouldn't stop. Larry set his feet and pushed, his whole body burning with the effort. The zombie growled, swatting at his face. Larry stumbled back. Barry's spear flashed. The screwdrivers punched through the skull and brain. The zombie stiffened, the pressure disappearing, and Larry stumbled forward after the falling zombie. Barry grabbed him, and the thing slid off the spear with a dull thump. Larry panted, hands and back screaming in pain, but he forced himself to turn. Then he saw them, Stephen and his crew running away, hiding behind cars as they ran left, away from the fight and towards their homes, past 3 charging zombies, leaving them to die. Barry stepped past him, gesturing for Anna and the rest to join them. Bastards, Larry whispered, his body already turning, the wrench in his hand. Larry slammed it down. Greg's zombie staggered to the side, and Larry swung again. The wrench punched through the skull, and the thing fell to the side. Larry turned back to the 3 charging ones, only to see Barry throw his spear at the first, hitting its center mass, making it stagger as the crazy man pulled his screwdriver, charging the other 2. Anna and Tina joined him, and so did Marty and Greg, all 4 going rushing on the same one, leaving Barry to fight alone. Faster, Larry's mind screamed at him as he rushed the still staggering zombie, his spear held high. He rammed it straight into the eyes. The zombie lurched back with impact and twisted. Larry tried stopping the fall, but it ripped the spear out of his hands as it landed on its back. The metal handles twisted, falling hard to the ground. The sound tore through the night. His heart stopped for a beat, listening to the twin pangs echo in the quiet night. Move, he thought, forcing himself to turn and help Barry. But the man had his arm in the zombie's mouth, the screwdriver flashing. The thing stiffened. Its whole body went slack. Barry pushed it off, letting it fall next to the third one, the one Marty killed. Larry stared at him as Barry grinned, showing off the magazine. The teeth didn't get through? Larry sighed in relief, grabbing both their spears. They had to move. But where to? Growls now filled the night, and Larry heard them move. So many steps, all around them. Larry looked one last time after the bastard Stephen and his crew, and he saw them, short one member. He turned around and saw Tim just standing there, a hammer in his hands, eyes wide and lips moving. The man didn't run, nor did he help. Think. Larry turned around. Their best hope was to run after Stephen and his, away from the dozens of charging zombies. But what then? Problem for later. Larry pointed left, his movements frantic. They got the message. Anna and Barry led them, crouching behind the cars. Smart people, he thought. Dropping the stolen phone at the corpses and following, leaving Tim frozen in the street. Larry didn't even notice that the frozen man didn't move. Not until he got behind the cover, a moment too late. Dozens of zombies rounded the wreckage like a wave around a boulder. Tim screamed as he saw them. They crashed into him, swallowing him whole. Larry didn't stay and watch. He hurried after his own. But they didn't get far. Barry stood by an overturned truck, a hammer held low as his head moved left and right, whole body tense. Larry reached him, returning his spear to him, and saw it. Stephen and Noah abandoned Leah, running away as the woman stood on a food truck, surrounded by 6 zombies. How did she get up there? Larry asked himself and peered right. The coast was clear. They should make a break for it. They should. She abandoned them. Turnabouts was fair play, always has been. He saw it in Barry's posture and eyes. The man was ready to go. Even Anna's eyes held no sympathy for the woman. But what choice did she have? She lived not far from Stephen. She showed them the map, only 4 blocks away. Damn it all, he thought, calling the number. The ringtone filled the night. The piles of bodies behind them moved. He couldn't see it from the way he crouched, but he could hear it. Every living and dead thing on the street could. Zombies turned away from the food cart, running down the street. They became a mass of growls as they ran past their truck. Larry waited for a beat, then 2. The seconds felt like hours. Adrenaline rushing through his veins, blood pumping in his ears, his whole body tense and ready to move. So he did, and it felt right. He gestured for the rest to go left and darted towards Leah, trying his best to stay silent. The madman Barry joined him. Larry and Barry helped her down, eyes glued on the feasting mass of undead not even 60 feet away. The ringing phone and dead bodies taking up all of their attention. Leah landed on her feet, and the 3 rushed after the rest. The phone stopped ringing. Larry pushed them harder, turning to see a small horde of zombies peeling away from the mass, shambling backward, stumbling over each other. Fuck, Larry thought, pushing into a proper run. 2 zombies fell as they rounded the corner, joining the rest. Larry stopped, turned, and peered back. The group began dissolving slowly, but not breaking apart fully. The noise their moans made pulled them together. Larry's heart finally slowed as he watched them, huddled by the car pile up, moaning and shambling, bumping into each other and the wreckage and parked cars. Then, his heart began beating again, swift, strong, and excited. The commotion and the ringing pulled in any and all zombies within earshot. They had a clean break to the park, and their first resting stop, the closed-down restaurant. He smiled, almost laughing as he turned. He met the eyes of his crew. All but Barry looked at him as if he were insane. But they didn't see it. Not yet, anyway. "Let's move," Larry mouthed. Barry nodded, his crazy grin growing ever wider, eyes glinting in the night. You've just listened to The Collapse, Dead Run Part 1, the Larry and Barry saga, and the first long-form arc in The Collapse. I post new stories twice a week, with The Collapse and the Kill List saga running side by side. If you enjoyed this, hit like, subscribe, and dive into the Kill List saga, a dark revenge fantasy filled with blood oaths, a brutal world, and characters who refuse to let go. Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.